And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking the World Rally Championship and Gunther Steiner attacking the WRC. Yes, technically, the people he worked for, at least he worked within the WRC. What does he say? Well, let's get into it. So Gunther Steiner has essentially come out and he's kind of saying that WRC needs big personalities to reclaim a global spotlight. Is he right? Well, here we go. This is one of the articles from rallyjournal.com, which caught eye, and that former F1 boss launches a scathing attack, it says, on the World Rally Championship. Nostalgically recalls the Finnish champions. Is he biased? Well, he calls for major changes to the World Rally Championship. Now, you can say, and I do think it's kind of, before we get into it, it's kind of factual that the WRC may not be as popular as it was in the 80s and 90s. By then, anyone knew who the Rally Championship was. Even if you didn't watch it, it was like the boxing heavyweight champion back in those days. And now, if you just ask a casual guy on the street, they probably wouldn't be able to tell you. So, former Haas F1 team principal Steiner, he has followed the current state of the WRC with what's been described here as a heavy heart. Now, according to him, the WRC nowadays is far too boring to follow, which I don't think it is. I mean, let's be fair, we had an absolutely amazing Swedish rally. It was just fantastic. We had an absolutely amazing, one of the best rally safaris, rally canyons in decades, I feel. But he said, I wish it would go back to like it was in the 80s and 90s. It was big, great sport, followed by the media and everything. He said bluntly in an interview with Rallying UK. He carried on saying, according to Steiner, the sport needs more personalities. And like, in this day of social media, etc., yes, maybe it does, but maybe the drivers are too afraid to say anything, especially with the FIA finding them left, right and centre. I mean, what, 10,000 euros because Adrian Formeau said a swear? Yeah, should he have said it? Maybe not, but it was at the end of a stage, and let's be honest, you got a lot of adrenaline going through there, so he can kind of be excused. So rather than a 10,000 fine, a slap on the wrist, but you're just going to stop those personalities coming through with the FIA being really silly. And Steiner said at the moment, some of the drivers are just happy to drive a car and are not engaging anymore with the fans in the audience more than they need to. He carried on saying, I think everybody needs to stand up and say, I will add something to get us out of here. Some will succeed, some will not succeed, but I think that is the biggest thing that's missing, and that's what he criticised. But once again, I go to the FIA, the people, the governing body, let's say, of rally, and they're the ones putting a big kibosh on that if you want personalities. But he said, I think the biggest thing, what we need to go back, is you have to have big personalities in it. You know, if you remember the good old days, all these Finnish drivers, there were big personalities, and they made the headlines. Completely agree. Also with your Colin McRae's, they made the headlines as well. When in doubt, flat out, etc. However, Steiner admits that the World Rally Championship faces challenges compared to Formula One, particularly when it comes to making the sport television friendly, and this is, I think he may have a point here. Now, he says to prepare rallying for TV is not easy. You don't have a circuit and input, and as much control over your environment as you do in F1. But he says, but there must be a possibility with the technology which now exists to do this. Now, in all Rally 1 cars, you can't. It will be too expensive and impossible to have cameras everywhere, TV cameras around the stages like you would in Formula 1 on the track. It would not happen. But luckily with technology now, you have all on-board cameras. And Steiner says he still holds rally drivers in high regard. He emphasises that rally driving requires more natural talent than Formula 1 or other circuit-based motorsport. I'm inclined to agree with him there. He said, I think rally cars are still cool cars and the drivers are very good. In circuit racing, you learn a lot in circuit racing, but in rallying, if you're good, you've got talent. You cannot learn what these guys do. He said, this is not a new topic. The World Rally Championship has faced similar criticism before. This season, he said, the emergence of personalities has been further hindered, by the FIA. And they're talking about Adrian Formeau's 10,000 fine. And Steiner openly admits that he has no concrete proposal on how to restore the WRC to its former glory. And he concludes by saying, I wish it would go back, but I don't have the magic solution. But I think something can be done, Steiner stressed. And I think he's right. I think absolutely something can be done. What can be done? Maybe we'll talk about that one day. But let's be fair. The first thing you can do is let the drivers talk and don't give them €10,000 fines. That is most certainly going to help. And what would also help, if you're not, is subscribe. That'd be great. That would make me happy. If you're already subscribed, let's be fair, you just clicking on this and watching it is more than enough for us. But if you want to do that bit more, comment below, let us know, hit that like button. It does actually make a difference. And it makes me smile. Surely that's worth it. Anyway, until then, speak to you soon. Thank you for watching, but above all else, stay safe.